not 50,000.
My question is going to be, what is the empirical evidence that exists to justify the numbers that are here? And are these arbitrary? Are these ones that were done just because of the fact that they were reflecting what's with other cities within Johnson County? Leawood only has a purchasing
It's like our old one.
limit is
mostly.
15,000, and so does
They don't
our
have
city.
projects like you do, though. They don't do capital improvement projects.
Correct.
They have,
Correct.
it's entirely different. This was merely a recommendation, as stated. Fiscal stewardship, implementing citywide best practices, whatever you'd like, whatever consensus is. This was merely our recommendation. And also based on a population of what you will be soon, not so much what you are today.
Yeah, but there's other ways to measure it, too.
Sure.
I mean, there's,
there's no,
you know,
they're all
average-
over, though.
What's that?
Every city, I mean, I can go out and pull 100,
No, I
and
know,
there's
but-
going to be 50 different variations, so.
But maybe, you know, we could base it on budget, total, you know, spending approval versus budget amount. I
Whatever
mean, there's
you-
other ways to measure. We could go by, I don't know, population, and I don't know, I can't remember how, I mean, I think Lenexa is 40,000, right?
Lennox is about 48,000.
Okay, and Leawood is,
Actually, I have all those right here with me. Hold on.
Leawood,
Leawood's 15.
no, I know, but population is.
It's on population. Okay, look, population.
Hold on, I have all that somewhere. Like I said, you're the 7th largest or 6th largest in Johnson County, so, and Lenexa's about 48.
Mhm.
Obviously Shawnee was like 60, Lathe is 100 and some, Overland Park's close to that. Leawood was, I want to say 35.
I was gonna say 35.
Yeah, something like that. But again, you have your own utilities, you have a CIP program for a growing city,
Mhm.
you are near the largest project in the state. You don't exactly compare, we run into this all the time on any comparisons, you don't exactly compare to any city, especially by population. It's just, you're different, you're very unique, and that's a good thing. But it makes it difficult to start formulating policies. Like I said, this is a recommendation. You wanted to implement best practices that you thought from EUB were making them successful, and you also have a fiscal stewardship strategic goal.
Could always increase it later, right? I mean, kind of a 1-year probationary period to see how it works.
Whatever you'd like, consensus.
Well, I do know that our current purchasing policy is inoperable.
It is
We really cannot work with
stifling.
the existing policy.
This stifling.
And when was that probably put together?
2006.
Yeah, before this.
Oh, well, 2006, not that long ago.
It was before all of your major boom. That's about the same time that we really ramped up. Got your aquatic center, got your Celebration Park and Moonlight Road, everything was after that. All of that.
Was it increased at that time? Or is
I
it
don't
just
think
a
there was a
continuation?
policy before that, to be honest. Not a formalized one. I'm trying to well, you're talking about the Wayback Machine here, but I don't think we had a formal policy. And now you have a much more comprehensive one, as noted, that we added many, many best practices in. Many, many best practices in. You have the best policy in the county now, I assure you.
The best policy,
The most comprehensive purchasing policy of any that I've pulled.
So I guess to kind of recap, are we conceding, I guess, that the department director is good at 10,000 and the city administrator would change from 50,000 to 25,000? Then the council would change, I guess, anything greater than 25,000. I mean, is that the consensus?
sounds good to me.
That sounds like that's consensus, then.
Okay, so director stays at 10, city administrator goes to 25.
I think we're still going to have the issue of not having a unified purchasing policy. You're still
Well,
going to have
I think
issues with the EUB and not being able to make expenditures.
That's not our issue, though. That's their issue.
No, it's our issue ultimately.
How so, I guess?
because any expenditures they make are still going to be under the jurisdiction of the city and our governing body. So,
Exactly.
so it's still our issue. So I think we still need to have an eye at trying to accommodate our utility in a purchasing policy for the long term. Having two separate purchasing policies, one of them, you know, our attorney's already stated is void, is not going to do us any favors. I think we need to try to resolve this issue.
In my opinion, we have two utilities internally that'll be operating under this policy that operate under the existing policy, and if it's good enough for them to operate under, I don't understand why the third can't. So that's my opinion.
Any motion that we make,
Well,
If-
I'd like to ask a couple of clarifications
okay,
before you go any further.
go ahead.
Are you okay with the formal quote levels, or do we need to change them? You're okay with all of those?
I personally am. I don't know about everybody else.
Before we start, if you're just focusing on the expenditure authority, I just want to make sure I'm making the appropriate changes that you asked. And then I have one thing that I'd like you to strike, one sentence. So,
Okay.
because it kind of changed everything, I left out one word. You know the one word "not"? If you leave that out, it changes everything. So on page 4, which is actually a continuation of page 3,
Mhm.
and it refers to P-cards being okay for anything under 5,000. So on page 4, the very first full sentence in that paragraph, purchase orders are required for small dollar purchases if they won't take a P-card.
No.
Actually, on page 4,
Page 4.
Of the purchasing
Oh, there it
policy.
is. I got it.
Oh,
sorry, I wasn't clear.
okay, got it. I'm sorry.
On page 4,
Thank you.
there's the first full sentence says, purchase orders are required for small dollar purchases under 5,000 should the use of a P-card not be feasible, like they won't take it. Actually, that should have said are not required, because otherwise, what's the point?
Mhm.
If it's okay if they'd have taken a P-card and it's not. So, would you please strike that sentence?
Strike the sentence, just add the word.
Just take it out,
Just take that.
because it actually addresses,
Okay.
it's kind of redundant,
All right, no problem.
with your approval.
You know, now that you mentioned it, the other items, such as informal quotes, that's a pretty big number to not have.
I just asked about that.
Yeah, I know, and
Okay.
I'm sorry I got stuck on the other
Okay.
numbers, so, now that we're past that, yeah, I mean, I think that number is also awfully high. And then, so I guess the formal sealed bids number would also change with that.
What number would you like to see?
Well, you know what I'd like to see is how many times this comes up where we have over $15,000 quotes that, you know, I mean,
We discussed that there's some projects coming that would affect that, and how many times, I can't answer that. You're going to have a CIP program ramping up, and it's not often, but it is a great deal of work to do a formal RFP process. And a huge amount of work, and there's timelines involved with the newspaper publications and on the city website.
The other item, it's been my experience, if you put out an RFP, there are a couple of different ways to procure services. RFP requires a lot more effort on the behalf of the consultants to respond. The RFQ, or letter of interest, they kind of give you a little bit about their company, maybe the resumes. It's not a lot of work. When you put out an RFP, they're having to respond to the proposal. They're having to give you a lot more information. A lot of times, some of the cutting-edge, larger, more well-established firms won't even respond because it's too much work for the money. It takes a lot of production from their marketing people, so they have to go after the big jobs. So we run the risk, if we require too much, and our job's a $15,000 job, of them just saying they don't want to respond. And we've seen some of that this past year.
yeah.
We saw some of that with trying to be able to get the Economic Development Strategic Plan done. We didn't get a large response to even the comp plan. But that's one thing to just kind of keep in mind is the level of work that we're requiring from the consultants and the firms for the value.
Also, when this number's published, then oftentimes they'll make their bid just underneath the
Mhm.
level.
Yeah, I mean, I would